The Arctic, a land of stark beauty, endless nights, and bone-chilling cold. It's a place where isolation isn't just a feeling, but a way of life. But the Arctic also carries whispers of something darker, something ancient. Perhaps it's the vast, frozen expanse, the untamed wilderness, or the secrets buried beneath the ice that make it so unsettling. Let's delve into the terrifying experiences of a woman named Samantha, who grew up in the small town of Qallupilluit, Alaska. Her childhood was filled with both wonder and dread as she encountered things no one could explain. Things that might still be out there, waiting. One family. And a creature that seems plucked from the oldest Inuit legends. Coincidence? Or is something sinister happening in the icy wilderness of Alaska? Step into the abyss and welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and join our ever-growing community of the curious. Your support is the lifeblood that keeps this channel alive. Now, prepare yourself, for what you're about to witness is not for the faint of heart. Samantha grew up in Qallupilluit, a small remote town on the edge of the Chukchi Sea in Alaska. The winters were brutally cold, the nights long and dark, and the landscape an endless stretch of snow and ice. Her family's home was perched near the frozen shoreline, close enough to the sea that the sound of cracking ice could sometimes be heard at night. It was New Year's Eve, and Samantha's family had planned a quiet evening. The cold was biting, and the stars hung low in the pitch-black sky. Samantha, just young at the time, was giddy with excitement, staying up late to watch the fireworks her father promised to light at midnight. As the clock crept closer to 12, her father bundled up and stepped outside to prepare the fireworks. Samantha ran to the living room window, pressing her face against the frosted glass. That's when she saw it. At first, she thought it was a shadow, a trick of the dim light on the ice. But as it came closer, its shape became unmistakable. The figure was tall and gaunt, its skin a sickly shade of blue-green that glistened in the faint moonlight. Long, bony fingers dragged against the frozen ground, leaving scratches in the snow. Its face was hollow and sunken, with sharp, angular features and eyes that glowed faintly, a yellowish-green hue that pierced through the darkness. The creature stopped just beyond the edge of the yard, swaying slightly as if it were sniffing the air. Its head jerked toward her, and for a terrifying moment, their eyes locked. Samantha gasped, stepping back from the window, but the creature moved closer. "Mom! Mom! Come here!" she cried, her voice trembling. Her mother hurried into the room, glancing out the window. "What is it, Sam?" she asked, but when she looked outside, the creature was gone. The empty yard stretched out toward the frozen sea undisturbed. "I swear, it was right there," Samantha whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It was looking at me." Her mother hugged her tightly. "You just got spooked. It's late. Let's go sit by the fire." But Samantha couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Moments later, a loud screech echoed from the front door. Her mother froze, gripping Samantha's shoulders. "Stay here," her mother said, her voice shaking. She walked cautiously to the door and peered through the peephole, but nothing was there. The sound came again, this time from the living room window. A loud, deliberate tap, tap, tap. Samantha screamed as she saw the glowing eyes peering in, the creature's fingers pressed against the glass, its wail vibrating through the walls of the house. Her father burst inside, having heard the commotion. Samantha pressed herself against the wall, her breath coming in sharp gasps. The creature was still there, its glowing yellow-green eyes staring unblinking through the frosted glass of the living room window. Its gaunt, angular face was horrifying, a grotesque fusion of human and something ancient. The blue-green skin stretched impossibly tight over its sharp cheekbones, revealing sinewy muscles and veins that pulsed faintly with a sickly glow. Its mouth was unnervingly wide, filled with jagged teeth that looked more like shards of ice. The creature's long, spindly fingers ended in claws that scraped lightly against the glass. Its nails were cracked, yellowed, and caked with frost. Thick, wet hair, like tangled seaweed, clung to its scalp and shoulders. It looked like something pulled from the bottom of the ocean, a nightmare. Its mouth moved unnaturally as it emitted a low, whispering voice, barely audible but filled with malice. "Let me in," it said. The words curled around Samantha's ears like icy fingers. Her mother froze, stepping back from the window as if sensing something she couldn't see. Her hands trembled as she called for Samantha's father. "What's going on?" he asked. But before anyone could answer, the whispering grew louder, echoing through the room. "Let me in," the creature repeated, its voice slow and deliberate. Her father moved cautiously to the window, his face pale as he finally saw the creature for himself. Samantha's sister appeared in the doorway, clutching a blanket tightly around her shoulders. The family huddled together in the living room, watching in terrified silence as the creature paced back and forth, its claws trailing along the side of the house. It stopped at the door, its grotesque face pressed against the small window pane, and spoke again, its voice dripping with malice. "Let me in, let me in!" Suddenly, a bright light appeared in the distance. It wasn't the fireworks her father had set up. This light was pure white and blinding. The creature turned sharply toward it, emitting a guttural growl. Without warning, it dropped to all fours, its long limbs bending grotesquely as it sprinted toward the light. Its movements were erratic, its body twisting unnaturally as it disappeared into the darkness. Moments later, the light vanished. The family remained frozen, staring out into the empty yard. The silence that followed was deafening. Nobody slept that night. Samantha didn't sleep for days, her mind replaying the creature's glowing eyes and haunting whispers. The family avoided venturing outside after dark, too afraid of what might be lurking in the frozen wilderness. But their terror wasn't over. It was a warm July evening when the Qallupilluit returned. The Arctic sun hung low on the horizon, casting an orange glow over the endless expanse of tundra. The family had begun to relax after months of vigilance, convincing themselves that the creature had been a one-time terror. Samantha woke suddenly in the middle of the night, her room bathed in faint moonlight. At first, she didn't know why she was awake, but then she heard it, the soft, rhythmic tapping against her bedroom window. Her heart raced as she turned her head. There it was, the Qallupilluit. Its eyes glowed with a cold, malevolent light, and its claws clicked rhythmically against the glass. Its lips parted into an unnervingly wide grin as it spoke. "Let me in." Paralyzed with fear, Samantha couldn't move or cry out. Moments later, she heard her sister scream from the next room. The entire family was awake now, and the house filled with the sounds of scraping and whispering as the creature moved from window to window, circling the home. Samantha's mother ran to the living room, grabbing the family Bible from the shelf. She opened it with trembling hands and began to read aloud, her voice shaky but determined. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." The creature snarled, its voice growing louder and more insistent. "Let me in! Let me in!" The whispers seemed to vibrate through the walls, but Samantha's mother didn't stop. She continued praying, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil." The Qallupilluit screeched, its claws raking violently against the door. The sound was deafening, like nails on a chalkboard amplified tenfold. Samantha's father joined in, reciting verses alongside her mother. The creature's movements grew more erratic. It paced frantically around the house, banging on the walls and windows. Its once controlled whispers became incoherent, guttural growls. Finally, with one last unearthly screech, it disappeared into the darkness. The family stayed awake until dawn, huddled together in the living room with every light in the house turned on. The Qallupilluit never returned after that night, but the family was forever changed. They moved away from Kotzebue later that year, unable to shake the feeling that the creature was still out there, waiting. Samantha still struggles to explain what she saw. Was it a cryptid, a spirit, or something even older? Something beyond human understanding? The one thing she's certain of is this: whatever the Qallupilluit is, it's not bound by the icy waters of legend. It can walk among us, and it will always whisper, "Let me in." What happens when that silence is broken by something unnatural? Something ancient? Something hungry? For Liam, a seasoned park ranger accustomed to the dangers of the Alaskan wild, it was supposed to be another routine patrol. A cold December night, a lonely stretch of road, and the vast, untamed frontier. But then, he saw her, a woman stumbling through the snow, terrified and silent. And as he would soon learn, she wasn't alone. What followed was a night of terror, a confrontation with a creature so grotesque, so unearthly, that it defied explanation. Our next story is from one of our listeners. He writes, "Thank you, and I hope you share my story on your channel. The story is about my cousin, Liam, and the one crazy story he told me. Liam was always drawn to the wilderness. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, he was the one who'd lead us on hikes, weaving stories about mythical creatures that lived in the forests. His fascination with the unknown was almost contagious. Years later, he became a park ranger, worked at Denali National Park in Alaska. It felt like his calling. Alaska was everything he loved, vast, untamed, and mysterious. He thrived there, sharing tales about the northern lights, grizzly bears, and the raw, untouched wilderness. But after one winter night, his stories became darker, more reluctant, as if something in those woods had forever marked him. It was just after Christmas when the encounter happened. Liam had been a park ranger for over a decade, stationed at Denali National Park for the last 6 years. The isolation didn't bother him. In fact, he preferred it. The wilderness had always been his sanctuary. A quiet man in his mid-30s, Liam had seen his share of strange things in the forest, unexplained lights, odd animal behavior, even the occasional urban legend come to life. But nothing prepared him for what he encountered that fateful winter night. It was late December, a time when the days were more shadow than sunlight. Liam had been patrolling a remote stretch of road near the park's coastline, ensuring no illegal camping or hunting was taking place. The snow was relentless, falling in heavy sheets that his truck's wipers could barely keep up with. He was about to turn back toward the ranger station when his headlights caught something on the side of the road. A woman stumbling through the snow, wearing no more than a tattered coat and boots, clearly unprepared for the brutal Alaskan winter. Her hair was matted with ice, and her face was pale as the snow itself. Liam slammed on the brakes and jumped out. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he called out, his voice muffled by the howling wind. The woman didn't respond. Her eyes were wide and unfocused, her lips trembling as if she were trying to speak but couldn't find the words. Liam wrapped a blanket from his truck around her shoulders and guided her into the passenger seat. She was shaking so violently it seemed like her whole body might give out. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked, once they were back in the warmth of the truck. She whispered a single word. "It's coming." Before Liam could ask her to clarify, he noticed movement in the rearview mirror. At first, he thought it was a trick of the falling snow, but then he saw it. A figure emerging from the tree line, shambling toward the road. Liam's stomach knotted. The figure was tall, impossibly so, with limbs that seemed to stretch too far for any human frame. Its skin was ashen and translucent, the veins beneath it pulsating with an eerie green glow. Long, stringy black hair clung to its skeletal face, and its mouth was an uneven slash filled with jagged yellowed teeth. Its eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, unblinking and filled with a hunger that made Liam's blood run cold. The woman let out a strangled cry as the figure drew closer. Liam fumbled to start the truck, his hands shaking, and just as the engine roared to life, the figure whispered something that seemed to slide through the cracks in the vehicle. "Let her go." Liam rolled the window down slightly, unsure if this was a person or some horrific hallucination. The figure's whisper turned to a guttural growl, then a scream that rattled the truck. "She's mine. I'm hungry." Liam didn't wait to find out what it meant. He slammed on the gas, the truck fishtailing on the icy road as he sped away. The woman was sobbing now, clutching the blanket tightly around her. "Who was that? What is going on?" Liam demanded, his voice trembling as he glanced back at her. It's been following me," she managed to choke out. "It took my sister." Before Liam could press further, the creature appeared again, this time in the middle of the road, as if it had materialized out of thin air. Its grotesque form was hunched, its spindly arms stretched wide as it let out a piercing screech that seemed to shake the snow from the trees. Liam swerved around it, barely keeping the truck on the road. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached a clearing where the road opened up to the coastline. Liam glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the creature standing at the edge of the tree line, its glowing eyes locked on them. Slowly, it began walking toward the sea, its silhouette framed by the pale light of the moon. Relieved but still on edge, Liam drove straight to the ranger station. They locked the doors and tried to collect their thoughts. The woman, her name was Anna, explained that she and her sister had been hiking earlier that day when they stumbled upon an old, ice-covered cave along the coast. Inside, they found strange carvings and bones. That's when they heard it, a voice calling to them from the darkness. Her sister had been taken, and Anna had barely escaped with her life. But the nightmare wasn't over. All of a sudden, the radios went dead, and the power cut out. Liam tried the backup generator, but it refused to start. Then came the whispers, soft at first, like the wind through the cracks in the walls. "Let me in." Anna clutched Liam's arm, her eyes wide with terror. "It's here." The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they turned into bone-chilling screams. Something heavy slammed against the door, rattling the windows and shaking the walls. The creature's voice was no longer human. It was a cacophony of shrieks and growls, demanding to be let in. "Let me in, I'm hungry." Liam and Anna huddled in the corner of the room, armed with a rifle and a flare gun, too terrified to open the door. They stayed that way until the first light of dawn broke through the windows. The pounding stopped, and an eerie silence fell over the station. When the morning shift arrived, they found Liam and Anna pale and shaken, the room filled with the acrid smell of burned-out flares. Outside, there were no tracks in the snow, no signs of the creature. But the radio crackled to life as if nothing had happened, and the power hummed back on without explanation. To this day, Liam doesn't know what the creature was or why it let them live. But he's never forgotten the whispers or the glowing eyes that seem to peer straight into his soul. And every time he passes that stretch of road, he can't shake the feeling that it's still out there, waiting for its next victim. That day, they found Anna's sister. She was exhausted, trembling from the cold, and utterly silent about where she had been or what she had experienced. Liam later remarked that he hoped, in time, she might come forward to share her story with the ranger station or the authorities. My dear watchers, your presence is a gift. Thank you for your time, your curiosity, your courage. But remember, there are others who wander, unaware of the dangers that await. By liking this video and subscribing, you offer them a light in the darkness. Support our channel and keep the stories coming, simply by giving a thumbs up and subscribing and sharing.